Well, our International Affairs Editor Philip Turle is with me here on set. Philip, what does this change mean then for young Danish women?
Well, basically, we've just been hearing in that report, if you're over 18 and you're a woman in Denmark from today, the 1st of July, you can be drafted into the army via this roulette system, or lottery system, I think is a more correct term, which means that you can join the army. Not necessarily you'll be forced into it, but you will be put in there because they have enough people already, but you could be put into the lottery system, and if your name is pulled out, then you'll have to do your national service. This is all part of a drive by the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, to increase military spending in the country. We've seen an increase already in the GDP level up to over 3%, 3.5%. That's 7 billion euros annually spent on the military in Denmark. And the Prime Minister, who's been in office since 2019, has said it was an error ever to reduce military spending in the country. That's why they're trying to beef up the amount of young conscripts that can come into the army. 6,500 by 2033 compared to only 4,700 at the moment. So that's the aim of the Danish government. And I think there are a couple of reasons for this. The first one is that Denmark is a little bit concerned about what's going on in Ukraine right now, and the vulnerability of Denmark, which is closer to Russia than many other European Union nations. And the second thing is the comments by Donald Trump, fear also that Donald Trump could pull out of NATO. And secondly, over what Donald Trump's plans are for Greenland, which is under Danish jurisdiction. Both of those elements, I think, have contributed to this decision for the Danish Parliament to increase their military spending and now to bring girls into the Danish military, no longer voluntarily but compulsorily.
Denmark not the only European country, is it, Philip, with military services? How does it compare to elsewhere, notably here in France?
Well, there are 10 countries that have military service still, national service: Austria, Cyprus, Croatia, Estonia, Finland, Greece, Latvia, Lithuania, Denmark, of course, we've just been hearing about, and Sweden. There are several other countries that are now discussing in their governments what to do and whether or not to bring back some form of obligatory national service. They include Poland, Italy, Germany and Serbia. There was a discussion in the United Kingdom prior to the previous election a year ago. The Conservative Party under Rishi Sunak was keen to reinstall some kind of military service, but that has been laid to rest by the current Labour government of Sir Keir Starmer, saying there is really not an appetite in the UK to introduce that kind of military obligatory service right now, but they may come back to it. But I think there are four main reasons for this. The first one is that we've seen a rise in nationalist parties in Europe over the past few years. There is also an ageing population in Europe. I think governments are worried about the fact that if there was a crisis or a declaration of war, there wouldn't be enough people of military age to join the army to fight for the country. So that is why maybe national service is a good idea. The 4 years of war in Ukraine have certainly woken up a lot of European countries to the idea that they're not infallible and war could be just around the corner. So it's better to try and build up their military capacity right now instead of leaving it to the last minute. And also, as I was saying, the fall in support from the United States and even possibly Donald Trump's threats to withdraw from NATO. Now, here in France, the situation is a little bit special. It was Jacques Chirac, the president of France, who in 1997 put an end to national service in the country, basically saying it was now no longer going to be valid for all those born after 1980. It was finally done away with completely in 2001. But there is still quite a lot of military spending in France, 411 billion euros annually, which is double what it was back in 1965. And Emmanuel Macron, when he came to power in 2017, has said, well, he's in favour of some kind of national service. He's introduced what is called a universal national service, which lasts a month for 15 to 17-year-olds. The aim here is to try to make young people aware of the fact they could pursue a career in the military, in the fire brigade, in the police, for example, in the army, and to bring in more conscripts, more young people to maybe pursue a professional career in the armed forces, and that would help keep France's army in a position where it can defend itself.
You talked about public support there in the UK for military service, Philip. What about the rest of Europe? Is there public support here?
Yes, there is. I think a majority of French people are in favour of national service. If you look at the numbers of people who are in favour, France is up there at the top. 68% of the French say it's a good idea. 58% in Germany, 49% in Italy. Britain has 43% and Spain 42%. So there are quite a large number of people in the population there who are keen for national service. It's pretty unlikely that that's going to be the case in Spain anytime soon. They've made it pretty clear they're not going to want to introduce any kind of national service anytime soon. But there are problems that need to be overcome. The first one is that there is a lack of people willing to fight in Western Europe compared to in the East. If you compare what happens, for example, in the Balkan states, they're much more motivated. In the Czech Republic, they realise that there is a growing threat from the Russians. This is not the case in more of the Western countries, Spain, Britain, France, for example. People would only be willing to serve if they really see the war as winnable, not to get involved in some long-term conflict which will maybe cause them problems and end up with them being killed, which I suppose is quite a normal sentiment. And the third problem is that France doesn't have the capacity now to introduce new military service. It just wouldn't be possible because of the financial state of the armed forces. But there is a law in France which still exists today, which was drawn up in 1997 when national service was done away with, which says that in the case of, for example, a national emergency or peril facing France, then the government can introduce an emergency form of national service and conscript young men and women into the armed forces to fight, if necessary, to protect the country.